But it's all good. Okay. So the idea of tonight is to go through with you roughly how to develop a strategic plan for your business from the point of view of as directors or managers of businesses. You've usually got some goals that you're trying to achieve. Businesses are always different and different things come up, such that sometimes you need a strategic plan for a specific purpose or to resolve a particular issue, and other times it's just the opportunity for the company to get together, look at where we are now, where do we want to be, and actually have a clear action plan of what we want to try and achieve over the next 12 months or so, just to make sure that we are on track. And that's terrific because it stops us getting distracted with other opportunities that pop up from time to time. So why is strategic planning so important? Simply because, if you do want your business to improve, presumably you've got to do things differently or at least do different things. It's also that if you do the strategic planning, then the changes that you implement can be organised, orderly, because we don't want to waste time and money chasing things down that or doing things that aren't necessary or aren't actually going to get us to where we're trying to go. So nobody has unlimited time, energy or money, so we want to make sure we know exactly where we're going. And therefore a strategy and a plan to implement is a good idea. It enables you therefore to make those good future focused decisions that we're talking about. So rather than just day after day of doing whatever you do, actually have that goal in mind, and it avoids that guessing and reactive decision making. And as I said, there's always opportunities out there that can be very distracting, whether it's the latest piece of software, things like that look like a good idea, but in actual fact, when you stop and think, if your goal is to get to here, then maybe that piece of software or whatever the new bells whistle gadget thing isn't actually going to help you achieve that. So it also enables you to control your business and minimize risks. So a lot of the strategic planning we do focuses on some people have sort of mixed feelings about SWOTs and things like that, but the idea is the value of a business is a multiple of the profit. So we obviously want to work out ways to increase our profit one way or another, but if we can de-risk the business, that enables us to improve the multiplier of the business. And it also stops, nasty surprises when, we didn't think of that, whether that's cybersecurity issues these days, or other dramas where you suddenly lose your key person in your team, or a piece of equipment doesn't work anymore, that kind of stuff. So, and by having your business structured and organised and not as dependent upon the one or two owners of the business, it also helps you stop becoming a slave to your business. So you can actually, your system, you've got systems and processes, the business can operate without you. That's good. That means you can go on holidays, or in case of emergency, the business can survive long enough for other things to be put in place to protect the value of the business for you. So tonight, the idea is that we're going to cover a few issues, not necessarily in great detail because we don't have all night, but we want to talk about how important it is to have solid foundations for your business and your plan. Talk about the 5 key pillars of a healthy business, as we like to sort of say. So they're the key performance areas of your business that are worth sort of focusing on. To me, it always reminds me of the Olympic rings, the way everything sort of interrelates, and you do one thing and it means you need to consider the other side of the story. And then following on from that, the idea is, well, let's have a look at a strategic planning framework. So how would you actually sit down and organise a strategic plan for your business? And then just a couple of tips for successful implementation, because the last thing we want to do is to go to all that trouble of creating a plan and then filing it in the bottom drawer, never to look at it again until next year, kind of thing. So if you're going to go to all that trouble, let's review it a bit more regularly. You guys are smart cookies. So again, I won't bother going into a lot of detail, but it really, really does help to have those solid foundations in terms of knowing what the purpose of your business is. It's obviously to create value for you as owners, but also for your team in terms of career opportunities, and obviously your customers, because whatever you're doing, you're trying to solve a problem for them. So having that clear understanding of what your particular purpose is, which particular clients you're trying to help by doing whatever it is you do, that again helps you narrow down that focus, find your niche, and and stay on track, basically. The values of your business are really important. Your values can be whatever you want them to be, but again, it really helps with your decision making. It helps you determine how your business is going to operate, and it provides those boundaries, if you like, for decision making. If excellence is one of your values, that's okay, as long as the definition of excellence, or what that level is, the materiality, if you want to think in accounting terms, do clients want us to chase down the last $5 in the bank account, or at a cost of $100 worth of fees, or is so that level of materiality and guidelines. Some people want things cheap and fast, perfectly fine. So just as long as you guys know where you sit on that sort of spectrum. And then obviously, if you're talking strategic planning, the idea is that you do need to have a clear vision of where you're trying to get to. So we do most visions can be very long-term, but it's helpful if you've sort of got a 3 to 5 year kind of vision of what you want your business to look like. The strategic plan maybe at this stage, that'll be a fairly big picture plan of how to get there, but then we want to chunk it down and do sort of 1 year at a time. This is what we're going to do in year 1, this is what we're going to do in year 2, and this is what we're going to do in year 3, and the level of detail drops the further out we get, because obviously you just don't need to, or things will change in the meantime, but you still want to make sure that you're on track to actually achieving something in particular. So that's the vision side of things. So the idea of all of these is, as we said, sort of solid foundations, but it also gives you those really good boundaries or parameters that help guide your decision making, because most decisions that come up, all those opportunities and things, you'll be able to look at those and sort of go, right, okay, is this really the core purpose of my business? Is this really in line with the values of the company? And is this really going to put us on the track to achieving our long-term vision and goals for the company? So getting them sorted out is quite important. Make sense? Cool. Okay. The 5 pillars are the key performance areas that we think you should have a closer look at. Businesses are sometimes a little bit different, and so there'll be different ratings on some of these things, and obviously you can drill down more or less depending on what's important to your business. But obviously, clients need to be at the top of the list, because without your clients, you don't have a business. Okay, there's plenty of inventors out there who've developed stuff over the years, but if they don't have a client, they don't have a business, or don't have customers, they don't have a business. So making sure that we've got those details. Products and services, obviously you've got to design your products and services to meet the needs of those clients. You need your team to be able to help you organise everything, systems and processes to do everything efficiently, and your finances need to be sorted out. And what you'll see is that all of these kind of interrelate. So let's have a look at a little bit more detail. And don't hesitate to stop and yell if you've got any questions or contribution. Certainly cozy enough that we can all pipe up. With your clients, it's very challenging to be all things to all people. So making sure that you understand who your ideal target market is quite important. Nobody has an unlimited marketing budget, and when it comes to products and services, as you'll see, do they want red ones, or do they want blue ones, or big ones, or small ones? Do they want it now, or do they want it later? Are they prepared to wait, kind of thing? Or impacts on the costs, in terms of how much variety you need to hold or offer, that kind of thing. So the more you can nail down who your ideal target market is and exactly what they want, enables you to be as efficient as possible and as good as possible at being the expert in that particular area. So try and identify exactly who that ideal target market is, and obviously then what they need from your business and how they want it. And yeah, the big goal here is so that you can really target your marketing and your systems, processes, whatever, to exactly what they're after, and keep them happy. And by keeping them happy, they'll then give you referrals for other sources. But we don't have an unlimited marketing budget, so we can't advertise to everybody. So really nailing that is quite important. In terms of those products and services, as we've pretty much said, design those products and services that solve their problem. So the old, benefits, features, kind of Simon Sinek, why, how, what kind of stuff. Really understand what it is they want and make sure that you've designed the product or service that actually solves their problem. And working out what distribution channels you'll use to sell and deliver. COVID has been absolutely fascinating from the point of view of how businesses have had to pivot and completely redesign their distribution channels. To see, 5-star restaurants suddenly becoming takeaway specialists. The local cafe down the road at the local shops basically set up a drive-through so that their regulars could literally just drive through and they'd come out and hand them their coffee in the morning. They set up the online apps so that people could order online and manage to keep their businesses going that way. So online distribution channels are certainly something everybody needs to at least consider these days, and different options for getting your message out there. In terms of products and services, and in terms of a strategic plan to actually presumably try and grow your business, unless it's to solve a particular problem, this is just a cute little matrix that, just as a reminder that you have a choice to, for example, if you want to grow your business, you can look at your existing target market and existing services and basically sell more of what you've got to your existing clients and stuff. Or if you've already got an existing target market and you want to grow, well, then maybe you start offering some new services. So as a really basic example, close to home, over the last, 6 or 7 years now, Everalls, the accounting firm, has expanded to include financial planning and finance broking and bookkeeping. So exactly the same client base, but offering them more services. Okay. Or of course, you can then try and target a new market. Sometimes that's geographical, or again, thanks to online technology and that kind of stuff. That's what that's all about. You might be a Canberra-based business, but now you can sell around the globe. Because technology allows you to do that. And if necessary, depending on how your market's going, what your competitors are up to, and all that kind of stuff, you might even find that there's an opportunity to create some new services and find a new market for them, and diversify your business one way or another. So those are just some easy ways or simple ways to look at how you can drum up more business. I suppose the market penetration style of thing, in terms of practical examples, we often call this the Macca's example, in terms of, would you like fries with that? The customer is there at the cash register, already spending money with you. What else can we sell you? Menswear shops are also excellent at this, apparently, in terms of, you go in to buy a suit or a shirt, and it's, would you like a tie with that, or would you like a belt with that kind of thing. So yeah, all very practical. Can't emphasize enough how much your team is critical to the successful operation of your business. They are the face of your business. They're the ones talking to your clients, your receptionist, through to the people who answer the phone and do all the admin for you. We just can't survive without them. So they all are doesn't sound quite right, but I always look at it in terms of cogs in a machine. If one cog is missing, doesn't matter how small the cog is, the machine ain't going to work. So it's really important that everybody in the team understands and appreciates how valuable each particular person in the team is for what they do for the business. And of course, they then end up being the drivers for growth of your business, developing the client relationships and the quality service levels. If you have problems with your team, it's nigh on impossible to go forward successfully from there. That's the first thing you've got to fix. Okay. If you don't have the right team members on board, it doesn't matter how good your systems and processes are, they're not going to implement them properly, that kind of thing. So looking after your team is critical. And if you look after your team, then they will look after your clients, and that helps your business. The people that you do employ have to know what to do. They have to be competent. So maybe you need to do some investment in training to get them up to speed. They need to know how to do it, which is all part of that training side of things. And of course, they have to be willing to do it. There's plenty of cases of employees stuck in the corner or made to do things that they don't like doing, and therefore they lose enthusiasm and perhaps attention to detail. And then that ends up causing you problems. So I also like to say that it's important for your team to know why they do things that way. Okay. So you might have, whether it's juniors or admin people or something like that, there's a particular process in your business. It's important for the whole team to understand why it needs to be done that way, because otherwise you get well-meaning employees, for example, who work out a way to cut corners, which they think is fantastic because A, it saves them a bit of work, B, it saves the company money, or so they should be getting a pat on the back. But what they don't realise is that was actually a critical step further down the chain, and without doing that, it then causes dramas further down the track. So making sure your whole team understands why you do things that way is actually really important too. So yeah, at the end of the day, if you've got a happy team, you've got happy clients. If you to try and keep your team happy, there are plenty of research reports and all the rest of it, and it gets updated every year as to what the latest is on what employees are looking for, that kind of thing. But at the end, the top four don't really sort of change much. These days, team members are looking for career development. That therefore requires good training and mentoring, and it's very much soft skills are coming to the top now. If COVID taught us anything, it was that we need to be adaptable, we need to be creative thinkers, we need to be able to handle change well and quickly, and therefore the training and mentoring that is being sought now by a lot of employees is certainly in that sort of soft skills kind of area. So, and that can also cover the basics in terms of networking, or how to handle difficult conversations, or how to do sales pitches, or whatever it is that's relevant for your business. But so not just technical training, particularly for professionals. They want those soft skills, and they want that broader exposure to stuff, not necessarily just the technical stuff. Also, can't emphasize how much good tools are required to keep your team happy. We've been there, we've done that, we've heard the screams, and we have changed, especially technology front. Dual screens for most professional businesses is bare minimum these days. Fast computers, fast internet, all that kind of stuff. If you want people to work efficiently, productively, and happily, then do not make them tear their hair out with crappy IT.
Not having it lag at midday. Remember beforehand, our old IT providers at midday, everyone, you hear this across the office.
I don't know whether I think that they used to try and do it back up every lunchtime.
Yeah, but as we do it at 12:30 or 1 o'clock, not 12 o'clock. Yeah.
Actually, go to lunch, I guess.
Yeah, forces you to go and have a break.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, whatever tools it is your business needs, do make sure that the team has the best, because it's just not worth the headaches. Good workplace design. Being new tenants in here for 6 months now. One of the reasons.
Does anybody like the old place? It's all love the move.
Yeah. Some people didn't necessarily like the location, but
I was 3 minutes away from home.
Now you're 10 minutes. Yes. But so speaking from personal experience, we were in the old building for 26 years, and we were very lucky to have some the 7-year cycle in the commercial property market with leases. We were always able to time it really well, such that we had to stay because it was so worth it. But by the end of it, the feedback that we were getting from our juniors, as well as seniors, was that the layout of the office just wasn't working anymore. And much as we were very concerned about moving to more open plan layout and things like that. So for those of you who haven't been to our old office, you'd walk in the front door and it was basically office after office after office. All the partners, all the managers down the corridor all had their own office. And then there were these caves down the back where we'd have 5 bookkeepers or 5 accountants kind of thing, doing their thing. But it was, it became the blind leading the blind, and it was inefficient, because instead of being able to lean over the petition and say, how do I do this? They'd have to trundle up the corridor to find out that the manager was on the phone, and then trundle back again and try and wait for them and all that kind of stuff. So sounds like madmen. Yeah. So it really was time that we moved. So or do a fit out, but yeah, in the end it was easier. So yeah, do have a look at your workplace design. Some places, especially if you're sort of open plan, have a little bit more flexibility in adapting things, but talk to your team and find out what's working for them and what's not, to see if there's any tweaks that you can do.
I work from home, so I just replace the pen holder and put
Yeah,
it on the left side instead of the right side.
New chair.
I'm still
if the kitchen's too far away, well, put a coffee station right next to you.
I have adopted a water jug.
Yeah.
Saves you that.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's even, we've had arguments over the years about whether we have 5 little photocopier scanner thingies, next to each pod, or whether we just have the super duper big fast ones, kind of thing. But then you've got to go for a walk to, so it depends on what works for your team. But do have a think about that workplace design and layout, and who's sitting next to where, and all that. The little ones are crap. Sorry? The little ones are crap.
No, we think that's a big way.
False economise with those all the time.
Oh, that's right. I mean,
It's probably the time as well to do it as well, isn't it? Because obviously when they do this thing where you can claim it, save a lot quicker. Use a depreciation.
Yeah. Well, now this is all written off, everything.
So I'll listen to you.
Yeah, that's right. So in the old days where you had to spend less than $1,000,
Now
5
it's
little
sort of
ones
like
might have been better than
yeah.
2 big ones. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks to the car money.
I told you to buy something, just the tax deduction.
Yes, exactly. And last but not least, good team building events there is basically code for having a good culture around the office. Fish rots from the head. So if you have a problem with your team, you know where to start. Okay. Managing your team well, being fair and reasonable, but firm. Trying to build up a good culture in the place. So whether that's Friday night drinks or having good team building events, just to get the team together. So, particularly with bigger companies, it's quite hard sometimes to get everyone together in one place. But yeah, try and get that balance right of little team meetings and events versus whole company team building days or whatever it is. All right. Systems and processes. A business does not run without them. And it's not, I suppose you could even argue it's not really a business if you don't have a system. But yeah, systems run businesses and people run the system. So again, that's why you have to have the good team members. You really do need to have those internal systems. Again, Macca's is the classic example here. You know, it doesn't matter which Macca's store you go into around the world, the systems and processes to make things happen and to ensure that consistency of product that therefore gets the trust of the consumer that they're willing to go into that place and buy from there. So you do want to make sure that you've got those good internal systems and the team commitment, obviously, to maintain those and keep everything rolling that way. When you're designing systems, and I know from personal experience as a director, it's quite challenging when different people have different skills, shall we say, or different levels of attention to detail. But at the end of the day, if you're ever looking at your org chart and who does what, it's actually quite an interesting exercise to remove all the names of the people and just have the position descriptions. Okay, that way you can design your business. You know, I need a person to do this and a person to do that. Then it just becomes a recruitment function in terms of getting, or you know, within your existing team as well, but to find the right person for that particular job. You do not want to design your systems and processes around a particular person, be they good or bad kind of thing, because you never know when they're not going to turn up to work the next day for whatever reason. You know, a lot of people, if you've got a whiz-bang employee, fantastic, they can run the show all by themselves, no help, but you know, it's all in their head and they know what to do, but the minute they're not there, well, what does everybody else do to cover for them? So that's why you have to be really careful there. And therefore, those efficient processes need to be documented. It's a pain, we know it, but when you think back to how valuable your business is, what the valuation is going to come in at, and we talked about that multiplier times by the average profit, that valuation multiple, if your business is run completely out of your head, if something happens to you, well, you know, there's no business anymore. It's not transferable to anybody else to keep running until it's sellable to somebody else, you know, or it's not sellable to anyone else because it's just so specific to what's in your head. So if you want value, you've got to document things and have a team that can keep the place going.
Is there a rule of thumb multiply? Or does it differ from each industry?
Yes, differs mostly from each business to business.
Yeah.
So you should have come to the boardroom briefing a couple ago where we talked about business valuations and what was important.
Why didn't you invite me?
Yeah, that's where we go through everything from your client base, you know, how much income's coming in from which client, how strong your team is and whether the business can keep going without you, how systemized you are and how well documented things are. Also look external in terms of what industry regulatory pressures are on the business or even competition, that kind of thing. And all of those then add up to a particular number. Most small businesses, professional firms, maybe somewhere between 2.5 and 4 as a multiple of the last 3 years average, weighted average profit.
Okay.
But yeah, we can have a separate chat about that afterwards. But yeah, so yeah, systems and processes critical to making sure your clients get a consistent experience, and therefore you get referrals and repeat business because they know what they're going to get. From a finances side of things, what you can measure, you can manage. The idea here is finances can be looked at not necessarily just in the accounting historic perspective. You know, when we do strategic planning and we're looking at our finances, it's much more forward looking kind of focus on it. So the idea is, if you prepare a strategic plan for your business, you have some specific goals, you want to do some specific things, which for example might require employing people, buying equipment, doing a marketing campaign, that kind of thing, putting some R&D into your product and services development. You're going to need money to do that. So, maybe, so first step is to identify the level of investment that your particular activity is going to cost you to organise. And then we actually want to sort of do a bit of a budget in terms of, all right, well, if we put all this time and effort and money into doing XYZ, recruiting someone, buying some new equipment, whatever, what rate of return are we going to need? How much do our sales need to go up by to make that investment worthwhile? Okay, so it's almost like you've got draft one of your budget, draft one of your strategic plan with, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do something else. Or maybe it comes down to, we've got 3 different options, and then you run the numbers over them to find out which one's actually the best one to have a go at, or is going to result in the most profit. And you can end up with sort of different opportunities to do things. One might result in a lot higher income, but perhaps it costs a lot more to actually do that, and therefore the margin on it isn't actually as good as perhaps one of the other options that doesn't get you as much turnover, but it's really cheap to implement, and therefore it's much better for the bottom line. So the first aspect of finances is, just having a look at that level of investment required, and then the P&L budget to see the profit potential of that particular proposal, to make sure it's actually worth it. And once you've decided, this is the way we're going to go, well, then that enables you to establish the milestones for actually tracking the progress of it. So then you know what your cost budget is, and then you can see whether you're staying on track for that, and you can see your income budget and actually see whether the strategy is generating the income levels that you hoped it would. And we do, nobody likes a cash flow forecast, but it's better to have one, even if it's rough, just so that you can monitor progress, and you've got a rough idea then of, whether you're on track or not, because the last thing you need is to get 3 or 4 months down the track and find out you're going to run out of money. So having that month by month cash flow forecast, even if you can just do 6 months, that'll do, and then just keep it rolling. When you know how things are going, well, then add another month on the end, kind of thing, just so that you can monitor your progress.
Oh, he's whispering to me. He said, yeah, I'm doing this,
I was just saying, I've never done that.
I know.
I think there's a lot of add-on programs these days. Funny enough, we were talking about them yesterday, like Spotlight and things like that, which really do help automate your business. Like if you've got Xero, QBO, all those, on the cloud software products, there's some really great add-ons out there. It's just a matter of, especially with trading business, that really helps contractors, employees, things like that. That's what's really built for bigger, so you can get more out of it.
And particularly the seasonal kind of businesses too,
yes.
that have those peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
You have to know when those are going to fall, when you have to buy all the stuff, Christmas businesses kind of thing, you got to buy all this stock in September, October, November. The money doesn't, you don't make the sales until December, and then the cash doesn't turn up until January or whatever. So,
and then you'll be able to February. So don't spend it all.
Yeah.
Think of doing that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Very
cash in my bank account.
Very true.
Money, can I buy a car?
10% is not
Yeah.
yours.
I've got another one. This one's red.
But yeah, so that's the finances aspect to it. In terms of those actual milestone kind of KPIs that you're going to be looking out for, if I remember back to my uni days, so to speak, there's the leading factors and the lagging ones. So, your annual financial statements are a lagging indicator of how you performed. What's done is done, and it just tells you what happened. What we want to make sure, particularly when we're doing strategic planning, is to focus on the leading ones. So how many leads have you got? How many of those have you actually been able to convert? Because if you haven't got any leads and you haven't been able to convert any of them or all of them, then that will tell you that your income budget forecast, you're probably not on track to reach that. So you have to do something different. There's no point waiting until 3 months down the track to say, well, how come we've only got income of X when we were forecasting a whole heap? It's all a bit late by then. So if we can watch those leading indicators to make sure that the marketing campaign is drumming up leads, or we are having interviews with people, and and then you can see what your conversion factor is and that kind of stuff. We do want to monitor our existing client growth and retention. So having just finished our strategic planning days, we've always known, like, Everalls has actually been around for 53 years now. We're a second generation coming on third generation company. But the problem is that what you'll find with most accounting firms is that the clients are about plus or minus 5 years of the age of the owners of the business. And because we inherited, we have an awful lot of old clients. So natural. Yeah. Well, it's good, they did retire, and now we look after their super funds, and then we look after their estates, and that kind of, and then hopefully the next generation. But for whatever reason, it is a matter of watching your back door as well as your front door. So see what your existing clients are doing and how they're progressing, and whether you're getting growth out of their business, and whether you're actually retaining them as well as getting new clients in. You don't want to be focused on all the new clients, ignore the old clients, and then lose them. And then obviously the standard ones, we obviously want to watch how much, if we've done this strategic plan with a particular goal in mind, especially if it's to grow the business, then we'd like to see some top line growth. So we're obviously going to monitor revenue, but at the end of the day, it's the profitability that counts. So gross profitability, how did our overheads track, and therefore our net profit. And of course, cash is king. So, cash flow is important, as we were talking about. So that sort of shows you the components of a business, and when you're trying to put a strategic plan together, then the areas of your business that you might need to look at. So it's just trying to keep it simple, because sometimes people just don't know where to start. So when we sit down to try and develop a strategic plan for our business, we, as I said before, you're sometimes looking to solve a particular problem, and other times, it's just the refresher for the year to keep on track, or maybe especially when you're looking at your long-term vision, that, right, we're another year down the track. Let's have a look at, how we went last year, and to what do we need to do this year now, taking the previous year into account, to make sure we stay on track and will actually achieve that long-term vision for the company. So it's a combination of really drilling down to work out where we are now, what worked, what didn't work, and therefore why are we here now. Refresh our memory, or decide where we want to be by when. And then obviously, if you know where you are now and you know where you want to be, the whole idea of the strategic plan then is to break down the steps that you need to do to get there. So a bit like a roadmap. Let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. Now, at Everalls, we don't want to get a new client in the door and go, right, what are you trying to achieve? Okay, this is how you do it. You really do have to stop and look at where they are now. How did they get here? What have they tried before? So, quite often we get clients who've, one could argue, have plateaued. They've set up their business, they've grown to a certain level, and then they just feel like they're bumping their head against that ceiling, and not able to break through to a particular area. So it's really important to understand what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? How did you get here? What have you tried before? What worked, what didn't work? And really drill down to find out what the problems are, that kind of thing. So that diagnostic is a really important first step, and you have to ask some hard questions. So the classic is people who are complaining about their team. Well, it's like, the team's not the problem.
Surrounded by idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, you treat them like idiots. So, that's where we have to have some gentle but firm discussions with clients that perhaps, all those key performance indicators, leadership is actually one of the areas not specifically up there, but it's certainly a much bigger component these days. And brushing up on your leadership skills and HR management, for want of a better word, is quite important. So when we know where we are now, we obviously have some goals about what we'd like to try and achieve. So step number 2 is sort of brainstorming those opportunities. We're going to then develop that overarching strategy of what we want to achieve. And then we're going to try and break it down a little bit and actually develop the objectives for each of those pillars, each of those KPI kind of areas, so that we can then develop the action plan for what we're going to try and achieve. And again, it's not the kind of thing we want to just put in the bottom drawer when we're done. We actually want to make sure we have a plan on how to implement, how to monitor. And obviously, we're not going to get it right the first time, so things are going to require some tweaking. And as we then go into implementation phase, we want to measure that and celebrate. So let's look at some of those in a bit more detail. So as I said, the diagnostic, it really is a case of prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. You really have to drill down to find out what the real issues are inside the business to make sure you're fixing the right problem, not just curing the symptoms, or dealing with symptoms. We have a process called a risk and value driver assessment, where it's like a questionnaire. It's got 8 questions in 10 different areas of your business. So we talked about 5 key pillars, but this breaks it out into 10, so that people can look at their business from a whole stack of different angles, and that then helps drive the questions are sort of like on a scale of 1 to 5, where are you with particular aspects of your clients, or like the top, what percentage of your clients drum up the most of your business kind of thing. So are you key client dependent kind of thing? How much regulation's affecting you, how systemized you are, all that kind of stuff. So you grade those. So if nothing else, even if you don't think you've got a specific problem, this is really good for highlighting the priorities then. So the business is okay, we're plodding along, but what should I focus on? What should the goals be for this financial year? Which things do we focus on? So that's really handy for sort of identifying that priority. SWOT analysis has, some people think it's old kind of thing, but on the other hand, we find it quite simple and effective. We certainly aim to keep things simple for people. We like to start with the threats first, usually because they're the low-hanging fruit and they're the ones that cause the most damage if you don't get them resolved. So identifying those external threats. So it is a risk management strategy to make sure you're not in a vulnerable position where something can hit you from left field. And it also, ensures the robustness of your strategy in terms of if you've come up with a plan, but something can hit you from left field, it's going to muck everything up. I've just put a note here called PESTLE. Everyone heard of PESTLE? Am I Preaching to the converted? No? Oh, cute. Okay.
I'm neither either.
Okay.
Oops.
This is one of those.
Fail.
This is one of those MBA style of business modeling kind of tool things.
Probably
So,
why I don't.
If I get this right, but political, economic, sociological, technological, legal, and environmental. So the idea is look at the threats to your businesses or even strengths and weaknesses from those different perspectives. So technology, businesses that are very paper reliant. Well, how did they cope during COVID compared to people who were already online in the cloud and systems and processes all online, and all they did was take their laptop home and kept going.
I thought we had a fire alarm on Friday. I was grabbing my computer and went, yeah, I'm here, I'm going home. I don't know how, I don't want to spend too many hours in the park on the street.
We actually have a post on Facebook because we were only in here about a week when we had our first fire alarm. Our receptionist was literally sitting in the park across the road with her headset on and her laptop in front of her, answering the phone. I'm sorry, Fred's not available at the moment. Can I take a message?
I was standing in the park.
Exactly. But it's that kind of, so particularly on the technology front, but what happens if your internet goes down? Because this is the other problem. Once you're all online and the internet goes down, you're fluffed. So all those kinds of things. Legal side of things, Canberra came up with some new legislation the other day through ACT Work Cover. There's now a labour hire licensing requirement. So if you're a labour hire company, you now have to be licensed. So all our IT geeks, for example, there is actually a little exemption for them, but it's definitely aimed more at the construction industry. But anybody who contracts out labour hire wise now has to be licensed at a charming fee of $2,900 each. So you've only got till November to get registered. So it's sorry.
Who does it affect?
It's aimed. So it is labour hire. So if you contract out people, then you have to get registered.
No.
Your company has to get registered.
Somebody else pays you for those people.
Like
For the people?
Yeah, no, you've got contractors
I've
who
got
work for you.
contractors.
Then you pay.
Yeah. Then you have to look at this. The good news is
Look at this.
Well,
We'll talk tomorrow.
you'll be in touch soon. Yes. So it's the new campaign. We're just trying to get through 30th of June. We've got till November to sort it out. But the point, and there's an exemption for high income earners and one-man bands kind of thing. But the point is, legal stuff can hit you from left field. So be careful. Environmental, I guess there's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and all the rest of it. Our old building compared to this building, we're paying 2/3 the electricity bill that we used to pay in the old building, because we've done the environmental thing. We have motion detectors on the lights, and they're all the, LED fancy lights and all that kind of stuff. But so there's an opportunity to reduce costs by a little bit of capital investment kind of thing. Political, everyone knows Canberra grinds to a halt every time there's a federal election, and close enough to a halt when there's a ACT election. Particularly, we do a lot of professionals and consultants, and the poor buggers, if the election falls anywhere between March and September, between, like, most of them are on annual, financial year contracts. But there was a couple of years where we had, I think, a federal election in September and then an ACT election in October, and basically none of their contracts got renewed in June, at the end of June. So they all sat unemployed for 2 or 3 months waiting for the election, and then the government got returned, and then their contracts all got signed overnight kind of thing. So it really is, the political stuff in Canberra is very messy, but we're getting better. Economic stuff is things like interest rates, exchange rates, all that kind of stuff that you can't control, but it's how do we mitigate against it. Changes in tax rates and all that kind of stuff comes into those. So that's one way of looking at it. The other thing that you can look at, the other modelling kind of tool for looking at your external threats, is also to, what do they call it, 5 forces. Look at your suppliers. What happens if one of your suppliers goes under for whatever reason? you know, is your factory going to come to a grinding halt, or that kind of stuff. If you're a you know, consulting labor kind of business, well, you know, what happens if you lose your chief manager or something? You know, who's going to look after the team? Who's going to make sure things happen? So that type of thing. Same idea on your clients. If you're a business, we had the last boardroom briefing, we had a guy who has 2 contracts. You know, if he loses one, it's painful, that kind of thing. And this is one of those things that goes into that RAVDA, you know, what percentage of your clients make up your turnover? If you lose your top 5 clients, how much turnover have you just lost? You know, are you key client dependent? That kind of thing. Oh, sorry, yeah, so customers, clients, suppliers, competitors, you know, what stuff is actually happening out there in the industry? Is there pressure from competitors on your prices? Are they poaching your people, that kind of thing, or clients? So all sorts of different ways of looking at those potential threats to your business. And of course, who would have ever forecasted COVID? Once you've got the black swan kind of external threats looked at, then it's probably a good opportunity to look internally, look at your internal strengths and weaknesses. So, you know, what are you good at? What can we leverage to improve the business? And obviously then what weaknesses do we need to acknowledge? You know, what gaps do we therefore need to fill in terms of, you know, whether it's equipment, technology, training people, need to do a bit more of a marketing campaign because nobody knows who we are, that kind of stuff. So do consider these strengths and weaknesses from the point of view of the 5 pillars. So look at your team, where are your strengths and weaknesses there? Look at your finances, you know, do we need to, if cash flow is always a bit tight, you know, because your business is seasonal or something, well, then maybe it's time to talk to the bank about an overdraft. You know, you get there in the end, but you just need this help in the meantime. They're a bit up and down. So yeah, that works well. And then of course the fun part, that's where we start looking for our opportunities. Okay, so whether that's opportunities to fix or mitigate against those threats, potential threats to the business. You know, said, is it a case of we need to improve our technology? Is it a case of we need to recruit, hedge against exchange rates or interest rates, or, you know, lock in a loan, that kind of stuff? You know, what can we do to mitigate against those threats? And then what can we do to leverage those strengths and fix any gaps that we might have? And from there, this is the brainstorming stage. So what we're trying to do is create a list of opportunities for each of those kind of pillars, whatever's relevant for your business. And when we're talking brainstorming, of course, what we're trying to remember is that these are all the things that you could do. We want to think of absolutely every opportunity. Is the whole point of brainstorming, even if it's left field, even if it won't work, you know, like you need to make sure that the culture's right in terms of if somebody comes up with an idea, you know, don't let it be shouted down, still put it up there, because even though it doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z, maybe there's a way to resolve that such that it will work and then solve your problems. So yeah, at this stage, brainstorming, just everything you could do, not necessarily what you're going to actually do, because we've got to nail that down a little bit more. So when you've sort of come up with all of those options, the idea is still that those options are what you, like we still have that long-term vision in mind, whether it's just 12 months or 3 years or 5 years down the track, but we still have that idea of where we want to be. Now we've brainstormed a whole stack of options for ways to improve the business that hopefully lead us in that direction. So it is a matter of creating that overarching strategy. So, you know, if this is a year-on-year kind of process for you, then it's just a matter of fine-tuning. You know, your goal hasn't changed. We just want to make sure we're still on track and that nothing's changed that we need to take into account. or an obstacle, a hurdle, or whatever. But yeah, so just making sure that we do still have that overarching strategy for what we want to, or goal for what we want to try and achieve, and therefore how do we think is the best way to get there over the next 12 months. So remember your vision, look at all those opportunities, and remember to do that little bit of analysis on each one in terms of, what is their profit potential? What are the risks associated with doing it? We need to put on a new person. That's great. How do we make sure they're the right person? What happens if they're not? That kind of thing. And obviously, yeah, what sort of mitigations you can put in place. So, people need good induction, good training, and all the rest of it to make sure that they can slot in and do the right thing. When you are looking at trying to sort of create that strategy to achieve the long-term goal, look for one that can help you develop or maintain some sort of competitive advantage, or as they call it, a unique selling proposition, a USP. So the idea is we want to be able to explain to clients, or as in have some IP process, whatever it is, that shows why you are different from the competitors. So, why should you do business with me? Because we do it XYZ kind of thing. You can go somewhere else, but it won't be done as quickly or as well or as whatever. Okay, so why are we different? And and therefore, why should clients pick us? Now, that might be because we're so efficient, we can do it cheaper than anyone else. It might be because we're the experts in that particular industry, or it might be because we're differentiating ourselves from the actual service. Everybody else does it this way, but we actually do it that way, and we think that works better or whatever, and maybe that does for a whole group of people that give you enough then to have a market. So when you've got that overarching strategy, we then want to break it down a little bit for each of those pillars. So, we've got our vision, we've got our strategy for getting there, and then we want that strategy broken down into the action plan for what we're going to do for each of those particular areas of our business. What do they need to look like, therefore, to sort of achieve that vision? So this is where, you want to grow your business. Just as a simple example, all right, well, how are you going to grow your business? Well, you need to fine-tune your product services, update for new technology kind of stuff to make it better, more adaptable, whatever it is. You need a marketing campaign to get the word out there, that kind of thing. You need new salesmen, so you need a new team member, or you need somebody else out the back to help do something to make it all more efficient. So whatever it is in those particular areas, try and break it down. What do you need to do in each pillar? What's the action plan for each pillar, so that when you put it all together, you achieve your strategy. This implements well so that you achieve your vision. And then the idea is we're trying to create almost, have you heard of plan on a page? So when we're doing strategic planning, we don't want a book an inch thick. So we're trying to come up, we had all of those opportunities, we've done the numbers on them, we've worked out the best way to implement them, which one's going to get us the best result. So that then becomes the strategy. We've got to implement those, and to do that, we need that action plan. So whatever it is, we need a time frame. So I did a strategic planning day for some clients a little while ago. There were some administrative things that we needed to do. So, one of their things was that they just kept taking money out of the company whenever they needed money, and it's like, yeah, no, you are now on wages.
Then you get
You have a yes.
I have to take this.
Exactly. So housekeeping.
One here.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying money.
Yeah, so sometimes a lot of it is just housekeeping, good corporate governance. So this is the way, you are an employee of the company, you should be on a certain wage that's appropriate for your level of skill and expertise or whatever, and you will get paid accordingly. That's good for cash flow, and it's good for your personal budget because you have to stick to your budget. You can't just keep raiding the company bank account whenever you want.
You know Bob, don't you? Oh, Bob's found a friend.
I've got to walk my car from the car park.
Just a little bit more.
So yeah, the idea is the action plan can be very simple housekeeping, good corporate governance kind of issues. It can relate to your team. So again, I've had strategic planning days with clients where the team members were quite the focus, and we had to get specific things like, Fred is going to write the, that they wanted to expand and employ somebody. So it's like, okay, what's the job description going to be for this person? The objectives of this job, we need to document the job description for them so that when we go to market, we know what to look for, what skills and expertise we're going to need to be able to do this particular job. So design the job.
Don't take an e-scooter home.
Yeah.
I've got a story about that.
But alcohol wasn't involved.
No. Hopefully not. My son's 12.
But yeah, so when it comes to, for example, recruiting extra people, it starts at the beginning, get your job description, design the job, what you need, do the job description, do the induction process, make sure you've got, a computer, a desk for them, that kind of stuff, does pretty handy. And then a sort of like a performance management system, whether that's and the objectives, the KPIs for knowing whether they're on track or not, so that you can monitor them. In terms of systems and processes, yeah, we one client did want to. We talked before about that matrix of services and stuff. So this guy already provided reports, for want of a better description, for particular issues, and they were going to expand a little bit and start doing some other ones. So there was going to be a marketing campaign to talk to all the existing clients about, hey, we now provide these kinds of reports as well, but he also needed to sort out all his templates for preparing those kinds of reports efficiently going forward. So, there was, in terms of these action plan being specific, stimulating is important because otherwise it just won't happen. So that's a new one. So it used to be SMART, but now it needs to be
Like how we
stimulating as well. Yeah, we had, specific, there's a particular template that needs to be written. Yes, he could understand the value of why it needed to be done and he was excited to do it. Measurable, actionable, obviously he can write one. Relevant to the strategy, yes. Time bound, it had to be done by the end of September kind of thing. We gave him 3 months to organise it. It was measurable in terms of we could tick off the box to say, yes, he's written the template. And the most important bit is rewarded. Okay, so, a goal in business should always be to have fun. So
something better than you get to keep your job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you need to celebrate your successes. So whatever it is that you're trying to fix or develop in your business, you really do need to develop that action plan. Who's going to do it? Exactly what are they going to do? Like, it's really important to not have vague stuff. There needs, you've got to get down to that level of detail. Which templates, which letters do you need, which job description, all that kind of stuff are you actually going to need, so that you can tick the box when it's done, and whoever's going to do it knows exactly what to do or can put their hand up. So breaking things down, chunking a project that looks huge break it down into little bits to make it as specific as possible. And that therefore, should give you, you'll have your vision for what you want to try and achieve, long term as well as the short term goals for the next 12 months, that overarching strategy of what you want to achieve. And then we'll know exactly how we're going to do that by having it broken down into those particular action items for the different pillars of what we need to do to fix things. So that creates your, and all of that can basically be documented on the page. You don't want to, your action plan should not be a laundry list of tasks to do, fix this, fix that. It needs to follow that SMART action plan, and you want to pick the low-hanging fruit to provide some momentum and, fix the little things first. It helps you keep going. And if you sort of focus on the top, every business will be different, but sort of 3 to 10 action items per pillar, if you like, you can fit that on a page or two and keep that, stick it to the notice board or whatever. This is what we said we're going to do. In terms of implementation, then it's breaking it down. Different businesses or different divisions, that kind of thing, will have different components of it. So you might need to break it down that way. This team's in charge of that, this team's in charge of something else. Or it could simply be, this is what we need to do over the next 12 months. Let's break it down. What are we going to do in the first 3 months? And then even then, out of that 3 months, all right, what are we going to do in the first month versus the second month versus the third month? So that time frame is really important, and it keeps you on track. So, there's no point having the strategic plan in the bottom drawer, as we said. So it's important that it's implemented into day-to-day operations. Do evaluate your progress regularly. It keeps the team enthused if they can see they're making progress. And obviously, you wouldn't have put things on the list if it wasn't important. So, so you do need to make progress on implementing your plan. It is important to celebrate the progress. Business is hard, change is hard, and if you want to keep your team enthused, then celebrating those milestones is really important. And that's where the budget comes in very handy, because budget is.
So I was trying to
If
do.
you
I
can-
was celebrating. I was just giving myself a pat on the back.
Yeah, that's right. So you do.
What was wrong with it?
So one of those SMART action items here was the measurable one. It needs to be measurable so that you can tell whether you've done it or not, or achieved it or not. So that you can then celebrate. We are never going to get it right the first time. Okay, not very, very, very rarely is everything going to work perfectly. Okay, particularly if you're talking a whole, strategic plan for a business that has all these different components. Not everything's going to work perfectly. So the idea is that by monitoring regularly what our progress is. So for example, we do a marketing campaign. We need to monitor that marketing campaign. We had those KPIs of, how many leads are we getting, how many conversions are we getting, that kind of stuff. You have to monitor that so that you can tell as soon as possible if something's not working the way we expected it to. Okay, because you don't want to keep throwing good money after bad. So the idea is if you can identify those issues where something's not working the way you thought it was going to, then we can tweak those strategies. Maybe it's the headline on your social media posts, or the color, the format, the font, I don't know, but or the way it's being delivered. So tweaking can be a little tweak, or it can be a big tweak, or you can just give up and say, look, we've tried this for 3 months, it isn't working. Radio ads versus print ads, or social media or whatever, I don't know, but could even be your people, could even be your systems and processes. If you're getting stuck updating your systems and processes, it's like, well, is it because Fred isn't enthused to write new procedures manuals, or is it because Fred is overloaded with all the other stuff that he doesn't have time to do the new procedures manual, all that kind of stuff. So that's where the tweaking comes in, to work out what the problem is and how we can tweak things to make it actually happen. And then, of course, if we are monitoring this each month, then it helps you set the focus and actions for the next month, because you'll set your strategic plan. This is what we're going to do by the end of the first month, by the end of the second month, by the end of the third month. Well, of course, by the time you get to the end of the second month, you might be a little bit behind, or you might actually be a little bit in front, in which case you can tidy up or update what you're going to do in the third month now that you're already 2 months down the track. Okay, to again keep it relevant and progressing. So on that basis, the question then becomes, what are you going to do differently this next coming financial year to build your business? Make it more profitable, improve the value of the business, de-risk it, so that nothing hits you from left field. How many sleepless nights do you have worrying about X, Y, and Z? Well, okay, let's do something about X, Y, and Z to make sure that that isn't an issue. In terms of the sales pitch,
We're fabulous.
Some more than others.
Absolutely
Thank you.
fabulous.
There you go. Done.
But
Andrew, you need an accountant.
I've got one.
So-
He's awesome.
But yeah, so in terms of how we can help here at Everalls, we can do that diagnostic. If there's a particular challenge that you're facing that you've had to go at a year or 2 or 3 now, and still can't get this team working right, or this these problems keep happening, or we've plateaued and we just can't break through to the next level, maybe we can sit down and sort of do a bit of a diagnostic on you to work out what the real problem is. And or maybe it's just a case of going through that RAVDA with you to say, look, actually business is going pretty good now, but let's make the most of the coming financial year and pick a few things to focus on that will have the most impact on improving the value of the business or operation of the business, the profitability of the business, whatever it is that rocks your boat. We can and do host and facilitate strategic planning days. It is very hard to do strategic planning in the office because you're constantly interrupted with emergency phone calls and all that kind of stuff. So we get the senior team in here and facilitate that. It's also good too because it's very hard, obviously, for the boss if he's standing up the front trying to drive a strategic planning session, whereas he actually needs to be part of it. So rather than watching the clock and the agenda and timeframes and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a fair bit of experience helping those strategic planning days, and we've got a format that we think works pretty well. I think as we were talking, before, it starts with looking at your personal values and goals, and then what your business's values and goals are to make sure that they're consistent. So this sort of tells you what's the diagnostic tells you what's wrong. The strategic planning day then develops that strategy going forward. The idea then is that we can do regular board advisory services, coaching, development. The idea being to help you implement and keep you on track, hold you accountable for doing what you said you were going to do in your strategic plan. And depending on the issues affecting your business, we can actually narrow it down. So we often find that there's 3 levels of assistance that businesses need. The younger ones or the less experienced people need help improving their cash flow. So we can run through specifically with you. We can look at your debtors management. We can look at how things are financed and all of that, and provide advice on how you can therefore improve your cash flow. Once your cash flow is under control, then sometimes it's a matter of looking at how you can improve your profitability. You can only cut costs so far, so it really does become a matter of how do you increase the top line. As you saw from the matrix, there's a few different ways of going about it. The value improvement program, as we've sort of alluded to, it's the value is your multiple times by the average profit. So once we've fixed the profit by the profit improvement program, then the next step is to let's improve the value of your business by trying to work out how to get that multiple up. So it's very straightforward. And of course, we are trying to do a lot of boardroom briefings to give people a taste of issues that might be relevant for them. So yeah, we pride ourselves on trying to do everything plain English for clients, and educate clients as to issues that they need to be aware of, and or better ways perhaps that they can do things. Sometimes they need our help, or sometimes we just need to be told, hey, have a look at this.
Not just do compliance.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you gotta have it's gotta be, your foundation's gotta be rock solid. So yes, we do compliance well. Yeah, if we didn't, we wouldn't have been around this long. We would have died many years ago.
Exactly.
But on top of that, we can do everything else because we have the tools, the resource, the knowledge, which we share a lot. We do all these things to look at your financials and go, oh, because of this, because that. Talk about other things apart from just, oh, this is your tax liability. There you go.
Sign here.
Yeah.
Or exactly. Yeah. So we aren't your average H&R block or backyard accountant. We don't like sitting here churning out returns. We do try to have meetings with clients to say, all right, well, here are your accounts for the year, but this is what I see. Yeah, it looks like there's an opportunity here that perhaps you could have done things a little bit differently. We want you to be able to achieve your goals, whatever they happen to be. For some it's more time off to do the other stuff, and other ones want more time to be able to work on their business, whatever it is. We want to be helpful in getting you to achieve those goals. Okay, so on that basis, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Talking to make some noise. More importantly, does that camera look at everybody, not just you?
Okay, you turn that off.
Blue
light. Seems the marketing argument.
I've only just realised.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is all.
Yeah. Slightly later in the night, we need to.
The camera-
Tell one.
The camera is only recording. Sorry, it's only the screen that is
Oh,
recording.
they got
Oh,
it.
okay.
Hurrah, hurrah.
You're going to pick it worse off.
Anyway, okay, so now we're gonna work it out. The good thing about really amazing
So-
ITs, we spend a good part of it going.
No questions for me, Melissa. Thank you. That was an excellent presentation.
Good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. It's always very hard to work out what level to pitch things at.
You don't know who's going to be here, what they know or
Exactly,
don't know.
experience and all
Well
the rest of it. So as I said, it's the idea of keeping sort of the groups to this size means that you can interrupt and ask for more detail if you